to CMB map, it is correlated with the plane of the Earth around the Sun. Is this Copernicus coming back to haunt us? That would say we are truly the center of the universe.
Shalom, my name is Avraham ben Shalom, and today I want to talk to you about my part 3, the Expanse. What's so important about understanding the word Rakiyah in Hebrew is vital in order for you to understand what it actually means and what it actually is saying and what is it that it is. First, we have to understand the root. The root Rakiyah, in many dictionaries unfortunately, is not actually translated correctly with the way they express it. What I mean by this is the fact that we have to understand some things about it. First off, the word rakia, which is the root, resh, kof, ayin. This word, when they were searching out the meaning for rakia, has completely two different root meanings. And one root meaning in the Aramaic means to spread out, whereas in Syriac it has a whole different meaning. In the Syriac it means to press down. So when a person is looking at this word in the dictionary, they have to understand that the word rakia actually has, these are two separate roots. One root which has to do with spreading out, and another root which has to do with pressing down, and that this word cannot be understood as a singular root. It cannot be understood as a singular root. It's just like the word canaf. In Hebrew, there are two roots for canaf. One which has to do with extending to a point, and another which has to do with concealing and bringing inward. And when you understand the fact that there are two roots of canaf, you can begin to understand then, oh, now this makes sense, why these two words, they don't have any correlation to each other. For example, when you look at the word canaf for a wing, okay, the word for wing is never described by shape. You have to understand, Hebrew does not describe things based upon shape. Hebrew describes things based upon characteristics and function. So for anybody who wants to really understand Hebrew, you have to understand Hebrew is always based upon characteristic and function. What is the characteristic of this specific thing, and what is the function of this specific thing? So if you take the word canaf in Hebrew, and you look at the fact that you look at the word canaf is used for wing of a bird. Well, what does this word literally mean then? So the characteristic of a wing is to pull inward and to conceal. That's what a wing does. The concept when we're looking at the wing pulls inward and conceals the body. That's what a wing is. That's why now when we go to Isaiah, for example, 30 verse 20, it says, Lo yikanef od morecha, that he will not conceal anymore your teachers. The same root word, canaf, conceal, that's where I'm telling you that you have to understand the fact that the word canaf for corners is not the same word canaf that's used here when it talks about the earth. And this is the problem that people get into, and this is the issues that people understand. And you can't have corners. Think of a flat surface that is round, which is what flat earthers believe. You have to understand the fact that the issue of canaf is dealing with the issue of concealment, which is why we get the word wing from the same root. Whereas opposed to the corner of a field, this is not the same root. The word canaf here is completely different, and therefore this is one of the main things as to why you have to understand how Hebrew works and functions. When we're looking at a dictionary, when we're trying to understand how these dictionaries work, it's a little more complex than it is on a simplistic level, because you have to realize the fact that this is why they're sourcing the Aramaic, they're sourcing the Syriac, they're sourcing the Ethiopic roots, to show the fact that this actual root word does have a different meaning, and it can mean differently with the same root letters a completely different thing. And this is why when you put the roots back into the proper context of what's being said, it flows very differently, and it makes a lot more sense when we're looking at the issues of the word rakia. And this is why we have to understand that what does rakia mean? It doesn't mean to stomp. That is one root that means that. The word rakia here, when we're looking at Bereshit, it means to expand wide. And therefore, this is why it's called the expanse. This is the problem here. You see, when we're looking at a noun, and we have to go back to the root to define where this noun came from root-wise, we then begin to realize that the word Rakiyah has to do with the root rakia, which means to expand. And therefore, he said, Yehi Rakiyah batuch hamayim, let there be an expanse in the midst of the water. This expanse is what was causing this massive space to separate the upper water from the lower water. If you think in the essence of the way people try to express this and misinterpreting it by using the incorrect root, by meaning to pound down upon, and this just goes to, bring out the wrong understanding. They think of expanse Rakiyah as something that is solid and that's been pounded flat, beaten. And this is not the meaning of the root. The root is not referring to a thing that is beaten. And it's hard because, these dictionaries, they don't have much of things to defend the issue. You have to really get into understanding roots and understanding the Semitic languages and the connection between one root that's connected to one meaning and another root which connected to another meaning, but yet the same roots look exactly the same. This is why they utilize the Aramaic and the Ethiopic and the Syriac and the Ugaritic. They're comparing the fact these are the same root letters, and here are the definitions of these same root letters, which are of different origin. One meaning to beat, one meaning to spread out, to expand. And this is the part that you have to find, is when you're looking at it, that the word Rakiyah does not mean to be beaten out, but rather to expand. And it's funny because, when you look at, for example, the two different definitions that are given for Brown, Driver, and Briggs. One is for Rakiyah, he says extended surface, and he puts solid, and he says expanse. And then he says in the word Rakua, which is the same root letters, one has a vav in between the kaf and the ayin, the other one had a yud, and then he says expansion. Let's just look at the definition of expansion, okay? The word expansion in English is the action of becoming larger or more extensive. If you wanted to look at the Merriam's dictionary, and read the Merriam's Dictionary definition, the word expansion is the act of expanding, and the state or being expanded. To expand upon something that results from the act of expanding. I want you to think about this. If it was to beat out or to stamp, let's just utilize this kind of thinking process. I want you to think out how this would be thought through if you were to translate it in this sense. First off, let's use the logic of how nouns are created from roots. Number 1, characteristic. Number 2, function. To sit there and say to stomp means to press or exert energy downward in order to apply extreme pressure upon something. That's not what the Torah says with regard to the Rakiyah. The Rakiyah, he says, was a thing that put an expanse between one object and another that was initially a singular object. Therefore, the Rakiyah that was placed in the midst of the mime, it separated the upper mime from the lower mime. This Rakiyah follows the root to expand. You cannot use it in thinking of pressure that's exerted downwardly. It does not make sense. But expanding and stretching out, this follows the same concept given here in the context of the scriptures. So for those who want to say that the heavens are like a dome, for those who want to say that the heavens are some kind of physical solid, this just does not follow what the scriptures actually teach. The scriptures teach that the space that was created within the waters also is contained within the water. And that's the separation of the upper and the lower water, and this is what the Torah teaches. And so therefore we know that the heavens are spherical, that the earth is spherical, and within the heaven sphere was what the Torah teaches us is the creation of the morot, the luminaries. So for those people who want to believe that the heavens is some kind of dome or whatnot, it doesn't follow. And this is what I covered in the last video. And this video, my main focus I wanted to focus upon was the debunking of the issue of the Rakiyah in order to lay out the fact of what the Rakiyah really is, what the Rakiyah comes from, the root, as to debunk and disprove the fact that the Rakiyah is a solidified object, but that rather the Rakiyah is a space, it's a division, it's an expanse of separation from the earth and heaven. I'll see you next time.